This is the DRF Players Podcast. Here are your hosts, Peter Thomas Fornatel and Jonathan Kinchin.
Hello and welcome to the DRF Players Podcast. This is show 327, the April 17th edition. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatel, back with you in the Brooklyn bunker. Muggs, a handicapping Labrador, not present. She is protesting too much travel, apparently, these last few weekends between Keeneland and Oaklawn Park, and she's letting her displeasure be known. But the good news is I'll be bunker bound for the next month or so. That rattling you hear in the background, that belongs to our co-host. He is flying high, folks. Big weekend at Keeneland for JK. Not only does he end up in the money at the Grade 1 Gamble at Keeneland, but once again, he has now beaten me in 4 head-to-head wagers in a row, and his head must be feeling about 10 feet tall. He's the people's champion, Jonathan Kinchin. JK, what's up?
I'll be honest, I forgot about that utter domination.
Here we go.
I didn't even. You were in the back of my brain. I was thinking more about the finish I was proud of at the Keeneland contest. I wish it would have went a little bit better. Things would have been a little bit different, but still always good to finish in the top 10% at a quality event like that. So I was proud of that. I forgot about taking you out back and whipping you up.
Oh, jeez. I'm sure you forgot. The taunts on Twitter notwithstanding. I'm sure you forgot. Grade 1 Gamble is in the books. And like seemingly every major contest these days, JK, won by a guy from Ontario. Do you know, John? I'm going to be guessing at a last name pronunciation here, but do you know John Kamove of Wasaga Beach, Ontario? Is he in the circles that you run with?
No, well, maybe I know his face. I don't know the name. I jokingly and affectionately reference the one of the Canadians who spilled champagne on my brand new computer. I don't remember his name either. He runs with that group, so I'm assuming it's all they all run together. But I don't know him personally. No.
So you're saying that you think all Canadians look alike? Is that what we're supposed to take away from this? John crushed the last race and ends up winning. Of course, for those who haven't been paying attention, he now joins Bob the General Montgomery, who won, of course, the 2018 Horseplayer World Series, and then Chris Littlemore, who won the 2018 NHC, and, of course, Ray Arsenault, 2017 NHC. That's if it's been a major handicapping contest that took place in the last 15 months, a guy from Ontario won. I don't think there's anything to this. I think it's randomness, but it is wild. You have any possible explanation?
No, I don't. I just think it's random as ever. I can't think of any reason why they would be excelling in these situations. I think it's just kind of a random shake of the draw.
If you made me give an explanation, I would just say there's clearly a good contest culture up there. Woodbine, they run great events. Both mythical bankroll and live bankroll. They're one of the few places still doing, maybe the only place, still doing both types of tournaments. I guess Santa Anita does if you count the low rollers. Though those are still real money, but at least it's a fixed bankroll and a live bankroll. But anyway, at Woodbine you can play in a variety of events, and they're definitely they cater to contest players. So they've done a good job introducing their players at Woodbine, clearly, to the benefits of contest play. And how about this? 195. Now, the press release said 195 players. I'm going to guess it was 195 entries, JK, and that was a typo.
Yeah, I think so. Every time I looked on the leaderboard, at least early, people start zeroing out, and there's ties late. But 195 is what I saw.
So 195 entries. Last year it was 171. And this is going directly up against Arkansas Derby weekend. And in the tent I was in alone, I feel like there would have been 10 more entries for the contest. It's just a testament to me to how much this contest has grown. What a great job Jim Goodman and the team at Keeneland do Why has this Keeneland Grade 1 gamble become such an important contest on the landscape, in your opinion, and one that you have on your calendar every year?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the 195 they had this year, there must have been a leak about what the contest prize was, or the contest gift was.
Do tell.
Oh, do you really not know?
No, I don't know. What did they give you guys?
Your book?
I did know that. I forgot about that, but I did know that. Not my book, Mike Maloney's book, Betting with an Edge. That's right. Fantastic stuff from Jim Goodman there.
I gave mine away. Seriously.
Thanks. You could have given it back to me. I could have signed it and resold it.
No, I gave it to Travis Stone to give to his father.
That's totally legit. We owe Travis big time. That's the voice you hear, of course, in our intro. Introducing us belongs to Travis Stone. So he and his any Stone family members listening, I will happily send you a copy of the book. It's the least we could do for Travis's turn helping us out with the show.
No, I think honestly, I think that there's a couple of reasons. One, the quality of racing that you get at Keeneland. It's just the racing there is great. It's made in 40s and stuff like that. But there's also unbelievable first level allowance races, second level allowance races, stakes races, grass, dirt, short, long. I think that the racing is phenomenal. I think the city of Lexington is just a great destination for people to get to, especially people that are into horse racing. There's a lot of fun touristy types of things to do. The farms, old friends, the dining, the breweries, the bourbon trail, all of that good stuff. I think it fits great on the calendar. And then most of all, I think, Jim Goodman does an unbelievable job taking care of the players and making you feel welcome. The green room's phenomenal. The Lexington room they set up great. Little things at the end of the contest, when everyone's kind of coming up to cash out and stuff. This is how thoughtful of a guy Jim is. In order to get the staff out of there, not having to stick around waiting for all of us degenerates to cash out and talk about our bad beats, he went ahead and cut them loose and just had like buckets of beer laid out so the guys could grab a drink still. And the hospitality in this event is great. And so I think a combination of all of those things is why people make it a destination on their tournament calendar.
I think that all makes sense. Now let's talk about your performance, JK. Folks sort of get the dynamic on this show by now. I would hope. I give JK a hard time about things, and he punishes me in head-to-head wagers to get his comeuppance. And so, but when I ask you this question, I'm not trying to take the starch out of you. It is just a legitimate question. So going into help me with the setup a little bit. Going into the last race, you were at about 8,500.
True, 8,400. I was in 8th place. I think that 3rd place was $600 away.
Oh wow! So it was a totally different landscape than the final leaderboard that we see. I know from your telling me that. So, okay, it's known as one of the flatter prize structures, right? The first 6 players get basically, sorry, let me start that again. The top 6 get NHC seats and BCBC seats. There is money that starts at the top is $37,000 and 6th place money is only $1,500. Basically, like 6th down to 15th is only $1,500. So when you're sitting there writing up your bets for the last race, what is your thought process?
Yeah, it was tough. I was trying. Okay, so I did my double bet. For those who don't know, in the Grade 1 gamble, in the second to last or the last race, you have to bet half of your bankroll in one of those 2 races. Whatever your bankroll is, you have to bet half of it. I had 4,800 going into the second to last race, and I elected to bet my entire bankroll on the second to last race rather than just half. And I hit that exacta with the 1401 over the 1401. That put me at like 8,400. So I didn't have to bet the last race. But what I decided is that because so many people were betting so much money, that yes, people might come back to me being in 8th place and I would hold that top 10 position. But I also felt like
I should have pointed out significance of top 10 is that those were NHC. I was thinking that it was top 15 were NHC when we were talking yesterday, which is probably why I didn't question your bet when you sent it to me in the first place. Right. But, yeah, top 10 is important because if you hold top 10, you get your NHCC taken, get that off the table in April, which is obviously a good thing.
Right, and so I said to myself, like, I'm not gonna sit here, hold, and hope. I'm gonna bet who I think's gonna win and try to move. And so I bet 2 horses to win. I bet $700 something on the 1 horse and $1,000 on the 7 horse. The 1 horse was the Ian Wilkes, something with bird in the name. The 7 horse was the Mike Maker horse. Neither of them ran well. I dropped to 67.75 and fell to 13th place. However, I still think I made the right choice. If I would have hit, I would have.
How much would you have gotten back? What was your return on that Dutch win bet?
I believe it was to make another like 1,200. No, it was better than that. It was better than that. Yeah, no, make about 1,200. I think. Yeah, make 1,200.
So you would have finished with
about 9,500 ish.
JK tries math, succeeds.
It was actually a little bit like 9,700 ish.
I don't know. You can decide for yourself with your bingo card on that one. I'll award it either way. So and this is my question. Why is the guy who goes around talking about crushing people's souls making a bet in the last race that even if successful isn't going to get him into the top 6? And I'm pretty sure the answer is because you thought it would get you into the top 6, and this was just an unusual last race where an amazing amount of people hit for a lot of money because Kamov ends up with 19,963. Timothy Yoler in 6 ends up on 12,000. I was just surprised. It didn't seem, given your wagering style, like an aggressive enough play from you, especially because I thought you'd at least take some portion of the money and try to cold cock something and win the whole thing, or at least get into the top 4 spots cash-wise, 37,000, 18,000, 10,000, 5,000. The Jonathan Kitchen I knew would have at least tried to take some piece of his money and get himself up into there. So I was curious to get your thought process. I'm guessing it's just going to be that you were surprised by the way the leaderboard went, but that's being a bad interviewer. I'm supposed to let you answer the questions.
No, it's not. I didn't like the last race. That's the basic and best answer. I didn't like the last race. I didn't like anything that was like the horse that won. I absolutely despised. So I didn't like anything that I thought I could bet. I could try to cold cock. I didn't have a lean enough where I thought I could cold cock. And so what I thought was, let me bet a little bit to just move and hold this position. I was just trying to hold in the top 10. That's really all I was trying to accomplish. And if I moved up a couple spots and grabbed a little bit of extra prize money, great. But I was just trying to make a little bit of a move into the top, stay in the top 10. I wasn't trying to win the thing because I didn't have an opinion.
I get not trying to win, but I don't see how you don't try to get into the top 6.
Because I didn't want to risk. I didn't want to risk the amount. If I would have tried to get into the top 6, I would have had to do a spready situation and risk a lot of money. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't have a way that I believed that I could try to cold cock the situation. You know what I mean?
I don't know that you would have needed to cold cock to get into the top 6, but it seems to me that a little bit more aggressive than a 1,400, basically like an even money return type double Dutch win bet just doesn't feel to me like the right play from where you were sitting.
Yeah, no, fair enough. That was like the race I despised. I liked the least. I bet almost every other race on the card, and the 2 races I didn't bet I would have hit. And I just didn't bet him. I was trying to be responsible and and relax a little bit.
That's what you get for being responsible. No, I'm kidding.
But no, I just didn't. I didn't like the last. I made my move in the second to last. I jumped. I was in 5th place. The leader was around 80-something hundred. I jumped up to 8,400, and I looked over and I said, if I'm on the lead right now, I'm going to bet. I'm not going to just be a target. I'm going to bet. And they flashed the scores and I was in 8th place. I thought there was a chance I was going to be in the lead. I made my move in the second to last. And then when it came to the last, I just didn't like anything. I wasn't going to risk that money, trying to chase something that I'm not going to risk 8,000 to chase 5,000 or risk 8,000 to chase 10,000. I just didn't feel like that was a smart thing to do.
I could see your argument, and I think it's smart to take into consideration. Obviously, you shouldn't just bet because the equity is theoretically there because of how much the prize money is at the top. That 37,000 as opposed to the 1,500. Not to mention the 2 seats, doesn't necessarily mean you should take the risks in a live bankroll event, because the argument. It's like an argument about the, you could make this argument about a Rainbow Six carryover, right? Like, if you're undercapitalized, or if you don't like the races in a Rainbow Six mandatory payout day, you shouldn't bet. And a lot of people will say, but you have to bet. More money's going out than is coming in. There's equity there. Just because there's equity doesn't mean it's a good betting situation. And the extreme example that Maury Wolf once used to prove this point to me was, what if Powerball was a good expectation? Should you play it? And I think if you're a lottery player already, boy, that would be great news because you're already throwing your money at that stuff. So why not have a better expectation? But the fact is, for like a normal person, it's still not worth playing. The chance of hitting is so low that I guess the point I'm trying to make is more going out than coming in relative to your position doesn't necessarily mean it's right to push in. So in that respect, I get you. I think that you thought, and you didn't say this, but I'm going to just put words in your mouth, because if you don't feel this way, I'm still confused by your position. I thought you thought that getting that extra little bit of money sneaks you 6th and at least gets you the extra 10 dimes, because finishing where you finished, hey, $1,500, it's not nothing. It's kind of cool to finish in the money in one of your favorite tournaments, but if you're not playing to at least get in the top 6 there, I'm not sure why you put up the money in the first place.
I thought it gave me a shot, right? But like I said, I was $600 behind 3rd place. So I thought it gave me a shot. But, I also thought that 8,400 wasn't going to be enough to hold the top 10, so I had to bet.
Right.
There's 2 reasons.
I get betting for sure. And I think it's pretty unusual. And Tony Joe or somebody like that will know this. But to go from what do you think the spread was 1st to 6th heading into the last? You said it was about 9,000 down to 6,400 or something?
No, it was 14,000 to like 80 something, 8,000
okay.
something.
And that goes up to 19 to 12. I'm thinking that's an unusually high jump in the last race. And I think you got the fact that you could have hit and still not made it to 6th was unlucky based on the amount of people that happened to crush that last race.
Right. That's what happens when you have guys betting half their bankroll, and when a medium price horse wins. Right. A 5-1, 6-1 type, that kind of thing is going to happen, because guys aren't. That's not what most. Not all guys are playing. 2-1 shots, stuff like that. So.
I like it. I think that's right. I think a lot of tournament players, even though theoretically in a live bankroll event, it doesn't matter. You could just as easily key to shorty. I do think a lot of tournament players are sort of programmed, even in a live bankroll event, to be more aggressive with that type of quote-unquote sweet spot or type horse. Do you think that's right?
Absolutely. That's why I think that the race before, there was also that big jump. When you have that, doesn't happen very often. When you get like a 14-1 over 14-1 in a kind of a smaller field, those, that's a kind of a mover for a lot of people, I think.
But overall, you walk out with more money than you came in with. You have to feel good about your weekend at Keeneland in the big picture.
Yeah, I mean, I've left a lot of tournaments with a lot less money than I came with, and so this is the second live contest in a row that I've been to that I was in the money, and so that's when you're in. I just like to be in position. If I can be in position, there'll be an opportunity where I will like something late, and I'll have a chance to try to win the contest. It's just the last 2 contests I've been in, I haven't liked anything late, and I think part of that is by design. I think these racetrack operators and these contest operators, they try to make the last. They want it to be tough. They want it to be a great betting race, quote unquote. And so it's sometimes it's harder to have a huge, strong opinion in those races. At least the kind of opinions that I like to kind of latch myself to.
We could do about that concept of what is a good betting race and why you put that in quotes there. But I'll just ask you to quickly explain it this time.
Yeah, no, I think it's the same that we talked about with the Rainbow Six, and so we won't beat we won't. I don't. That's probably not a funny one to use, but I was saying, beat a dead horse, but that's probably inappropriate. No, I think that the way that I look at it is, I want an opportunity where there's form that I can build an opinion off of, rather than some chaotic situation. And I think a lot of times they like those chaotic situations. I just don't prefer them.
The way that I learned the term a great betting race was simply a race that the favorite even was going to get you back $10. That was just the way I learned the term. And of course, I get what they're saying, that in pure gambling terms, that is a great betting race when you're going to at least get back $10 for your $2 bet. However, a great betting race in that sense, not necessarily a great bet for Jonathan Kitchen at the end of the Grade 1 gamble, or any horse player who's going there trying to get a positive return on their money over the long haul, not just in a given day, let alone a given race. Agreed?
Yeah, no, completely, 100%.
All right, we have more tournaments to talk about, but I think why don't we loop back to tournaments at the end here, JK, and talk a little bit about the racing we saw over the weekend, specifically the stakes racing that we saw at Oaklawn Park. And we might as well start it off with the Arkansas Derby. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm warming a little bit to Magnum Moon.
That makes
I don't
one
think.
Of us.
Yeah. I mean, the pace was easy, right? I mean, I think we can't discount that. But he's a progressive type. He's in the right barn for a guy that can get one going the right direction. He's by no means changing my single or anything like that. But I think that he's definitely a horse that, with his running style, he's going to be forward. He's going to be involved, and I think that there's a chance that he could continue to be improving. But like I said, I'm not in love with him, and you definitely can't be in love with a horse who's on the lead, bluely coated fractions on time form. But I thought he ran well enough. Combatant gave me a small little thrill, like he was going to run, but he didn't. And then Solimini, I guess he outran what I thought he was going to run, getting third. But yeah, it was an interesting race. I didn't see anything this weekend that changed the way I feel about the Kentucky Derby, though.
I don't disagree with that. I mean, the problem for me with the performance of Magnum Moon, and look, I mean, obviously I'd love to own the horse and all that, and the horse did what the horse was supposed to do, and it was financially a good thing. But I just feel like when you get a setup like that, I want to see a more impressive visual run through the stretch, and I want to see a big figure, and we got neither of those. So it just makes me think that this is one who's going to have some difficulty, let's say, come the first Saturday in May. Am I being too harsh, or I mean, you sound like you like him more than me?
Yeah, no, I mean, I just think he's gonna get that Todd trip, kind of we talked about with Vino Rosso. I mean, if he gets that kind of 4 wide, 3 wide, in the clear, nothing really got it his way trip, and he just kind of finishes in the lane because he's got a good foundation. He's trained by a good trainer. He's got a great pedigree, and he runs third. I don't see a world in which Magnum Moon jumps up and wins the race, but I do think that he could be a progressive, improving type with all the right boxes checked, that he could improve. However, he's going to run faster than he's ever run early. He's going to run farther than he's ever run, and he's going to have more pressure than he's ever had. So that doesn't make me feel like he can win. But I do feel like there's a different scenario in which he could still be around late when he's just, running 12s and just kind of clipping around there and staying on for a piece.
Do you give Combatant a bit of a pass given the pace scenario? I guess he won't be qualifying for the Kentucky Derby, so you won't have to worry about him there. But is Combatant still a horse you have your eye on? Because I'm certainly not ruling out the fact that he could continue to improve as the year goes on.
Yeah, no, I think Combatant's right on the edge. I think there was a defection yesterday. The horse that you liked that won, it's Sunland. I'm gonna have it in 2 seconds. I think last time I checked, Combatant was 21st on the list. He's 20th now. He's 20th. That's interesting. Yeah,
so
no, he's 20th. He's in.
Well, then let's definitely pause and talk about him for a second. I mean, to me, very different pace scenario. That's a horse that I would certainly have on my tickets more than Magnum Moon.
Okay, so yes, but Magnum Moon is going to need less of a trip situation to a good. He's going to need less of a good trip or trip luck, I'll say, than Combatant's going to. Combatant could get
40 to
stopped.
1 versus 10 to 1 is my answer to that.
100%. I'm with you. I mean, Combatant right now, if someone asked me, hey, I want to key a horse in second, third, and fourth to hit the board, who would you use? I'm fairly certain it would be a horse like Combatant or Free Drop Billy.
All right, I'm looking at it here. Yeah, you've got it. You've got it exactly right. What are your other thoughts coming out of the Arkansas Derby? Any other horses you're looking to bet on or against as we move forward here?
No, I mean, I'll keep betting against Solomini, but I just don't think he's the type that's ever going to win a race like this or like that. When I say that, by meaning the Derby. So, I'll be against him. I think Quip probably didn't really have an excuse there. I mean, he sat off of that and just, got beat by 4. So I don't really see how he's going to turn the tables. But he's one of those 4 type horses every year in the Derby. And I've finally learned the last couple of years to not make this mistake. But being forward in the Derby, in my opinion, is where you want to be. It's like the Belmont, those 1.25 mile races, those 1.5 mile races. They give you this false sense of security that you have these late running horses that with more ground are going to be running later. And I think it's the opposite. I think that those late running horses are tired back there too. Our breed is not bred to run 1.25 miles. I don't care if you're going 25 and 50 early. It doesn't matter. You're not going to have the run that I think people think you're going to have. And so I'm always going to favor horses that are going to be forwardly placed over some kind of pluggy, plodding type. So,
well, what you're saying is also times 10 in the era of the Derby point standings, because as we've talked about many times on the show, pace scenario very different in this race, since what they're valuing to get you into the starting gate is 3-year-old form going long, as opposed to graded stakes earnings where you had sprinters setting things up for the likes of Giacomo and Mind That Bird, etc. So that could certainly be the case against getting too excited about a Combatant on the win end. I was just talking about a horse who, I felt you could creatively be putting in third and fourth in your verticals at a big number, and also having an opportunity to throw in there, mix in a little bit towards the top. All right, so Todd Pletcher, 4 of the top 5 on the point standings. It just looks amazing when you look at it on the actual chart. These runners, Magnum Moon, of course, Audible, Noble Indy, and Vino Rosso. I'm going to make you, if not rank them, JK, tell me which of the 4 you would be the most interested in pressing, if you had to, in your Derby wagers in any pool.
I got you right here. I'll go in order from just for the sake of being on the spot. I got to go 1 to 5. I can't do the suspenseful 5 to 1. I'm going to go Magnum Moon. I'll go Vino Rosso, Audible, Noble Indy. Is that it?
That's it. That's the 4.
Okay,
that's
there we go.
You successfulast counted to 4.
There it is. How about Todd? How about the month that Todd Pletcher's had?
It's insane. I mean,
last 30 days, right? He's Army Mule. He beat Unique Bella at Oaklawn in the Apple Blossom, and then he's won like every Derby prep except for the ones that Bob Baffert won.
Right,
and Good Magic, of course.
Yeah, it's insane, and it'll be interesting to see. There's going to be a lot of narratives that are dangled in front of us over the next few weeks. Of course, probably the top of the list of narratives will be the 1882 Apollo thing in regards to your horse Justify. I wonder if, even after winning last year, if somebody's going to just pull out some sort of, well, Pletcher, when you look at him overall, and the stat is going to be whatever it is. It's not going to be pretty. I kind of thought we were ready to put that narrative to bed, but I wonder if there won't be some people out there just saying, hey, let's just play against all four because Pletcher's record is, theoretically underachieving in the race. I don't happen to love any of the four this year, but I mean, I feel like there's good reasons to oppose horses and poor reasons to oppose horses. Right. I certainly think his record in the race would fall into the poor category.
Well, yeah, what's going to be fun is when people ask, people say like, well, I don't like Todd because of his Derby record. And then I say, well, who do you like? They say, and I'm ready. When they say, I like Good Magic, I'm going to say, what's Chad's record in the Derby? Oh, no, I like Bolt Doro. What's mixed record in the Derby? No, I like Kieran. I like Entice. Well, what's Kieran's record in the Derby? No, I like Mendelssohn. Oh, what's Aiden O'Brien's record in the Derby? That's going to be my answer to everything when people say so.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Mendelssohn because that was the other stat I wanted to talk about. That's there was actually a fun video I saw by Doug Salvatore, who I don't know personally, but seems to be a sharp guy. And he did a very long video, which if you're interested in this type of thing, you might want to check out. At Doogie Sal, I believe is his Twitter, where he went through all of the whatever it is, 50. I think he looked at it as O'Brien dirt starters in the U.S. over the past 10 years, and they were something like 1 for 50. And he quite correctly points out that when you throw out all the ones that are bred for turf and you look only at the ones who actually have dirt breeding, the numbers end up being not so bad at all. And again, I'm not saying you have to agree with me and think Mendelssohn is a number one, one of your top two contenders for this year's Kentucky Derby. I think there are probably some good reasons to take a cynical view. But I don't think opposing Aiden O'Brien's training is an acceptable one for me.
No. I'd love to see. I'd love to see how many of Aiden's dirt runners in America had their previous start on dirt.
Right. It might bring it down to 0. In fact, I think it would bring it down to 0, but I'm not 1,000% sure. Maybe he had a UAE Derby go to maybe like Hold That Tiger or somebody ran in the UAE Derby and then came here. But it's gonna take that sample down like super duper low. Of course, with Formulator, you can look at a lot of this stuff. If folks feel like making a deeper dive, that would only be in the last 5 years. But I do think, as all trainers, in case with all good trainers, their training's evolving anyway, and looking at the past 5-year sample, probably not a bad idea. But Doug in that video does a good job of going through the pedigrees of the ones who've succeeded, and they all have dirt pedigrees, and not near as good dirt pedigrees as Mendelssohn has. So anyway, it's kind of fun. Check that out if you're interested in that type of thing. A lot of great info, of course, on the breeding side on DRF.com as well, from the likes of Nicole Russo, Dan Illman, of course. Also I talked to him. His knowledge of pedigree never ceases to amaze me. He's got so much information in his head. I can barely remember what I had for breakfast. So, stick with those guys when it comes to that stuff. But it'll be interesting to see, though. Sometimes the Kentucky Derby is like the one race where you see a weird narrative and it'll really move numbers or another. This year, it's going to be hard to know which of the narratives it is, and so we'll just have to keep a close eye on this on the odds board when it opens up on Friday. And of course, for those of you who can bet over in the UK, you can take a look at the current goings on Odds Checker. I'll navigate over there. Maybe we'll do a quick recap of what UK prices are looking like right now before we move on. But to give me a minute to pull that up, JK, why don't you talk a little bit more about some of the racing action from Oaklawn this weekend? Any performances in particular that impressed you?
Yeah. No, I think we should probably back up one race to race 10, the Oaklawn Handicap in our boys City of Light. Ran a 1:33 time form, ran huge, was a little bit wide around there. It's first time kind of doing the 2-turn thing, and not only did he do the 2-turn thing, he did it 1 mile and an 8. I tell you what, this horse, if we can get Army Mule successfully to Belmont Day for the Met Mile, and if we can somehow find a way to I haven't seen where he is on the tab, I'll pull him up, but Sharp Azteca there could end up being a heck of a horse race in June at Belmont. I thought City of Light was extremely impressive. Great training job by Mike McCarthy. Look forward to seeing him the rest of the year. progressive, impressive 4-year-old who I think is going to be one to deal with for the rest of the year.
And I will say this. You may have absolutely humiliated me in our 2 head-to-head bets this weekend, JK, but really the big winners of all of our head-to-heads and racing discussion on Friday, I don't often go this far out of my way to toot our own horns, but if you listen to the show on Friday and you care about what we have to say, how did you not make money? There were winners flying everywhere from both of us, including that one for McCarthy at Oaklawn.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to circle back to Sharp Azteca, the last published work was March 10th at Gulfstream Park West. So that's not looking like he's going in the right direction for a grade 1. But, maybe he'll be able to circle back around and be ready earlier in the year. Or maybe he'll come back later. But, no, I thought, we threw a few out.
Your head-to-head beat of me was a terrific price rated our Superstar.
Absolutely. Not only did I beat you, but he got the horse that we were trying to get Faded beat. So that worked out well. I guess maybe we should transition over to Keeneland, or is there something else at Oaklawn?
Well, I just wanted to recap the figures. So yeah, City of Light 107 buyer, and if you look at Timeform US, if the Timeform US equivalent figure faster yet, did you say it was a 133?
133. Accelerate got the same number, by the way, 133.
Which feels more like a 113 if you look at it that way. We probably should also quickly mention Whitmore. I thought a nice performance in the Count Fleet, getting it done with a 102 buyer. A lower end of the odds spectrum, but another one we yapped about. And then I think I'm ready to move on to Keith.
Yeah, I just if people didn't see it, I tweeted Whitmore something. He's a top class sprinter or something like that. Something about him. Which furious run he made in the middle of the stretch. But our friend and well-respected handicapper Paul Matisse mentioned that he won't beat the good ones if he continues to get out on the turn. And I didn't even notice it when I watched it. I was watching the kind of front end of the race to see what was happening. So a little handicapping lesson if you wanted to see that. Maybe watch that replay and see what Paul was referring to. But I think it's a problem that he's had for some time, Whitmore.
Yes, we've seen that move from him before. And I'm curious if Paul thinks that the bigger issue there is some sort of underlying comment about his form and not able to get better, or if it has more to do because of that tendency, or if it has to do with the ground loss that he's incurring because of that. We're overdue to have a visit from Paul. We might have to press him into service, and that's one of the things we'll put on the list to talk to him about.
You know what? We always talk about this. We joke about having our production meetings in the middle of the show, but a really fun idea, if we could try to pull it off, is maybe Derby week, trying to get him and Mike on the same show. Oh,
that's an interesting idea. That's a very interesting idea.
That could be star-studded. Maybe we'd get if we get them on and keep it 59 minutes, we might get a look at an Eclipse Award or something. Huh? Let those two talk the whole time. You and I just sit there.
As long as we don't talk too much, that is a possibility. We're going to run Wednesday and Thursday of Derby week. We were looking at that. Already. We're actually looking ahead for once into the calendar. We thought that worked well last year. Wednesday, we can go over the Oaks card, and Thursday, we'll look at the Derby itself. And if those boys would be willing to come on and chat, obviously we would be fools to do anything but open the doors wide and usher them in. All right. Rather than just talk about the Jenny Wiley, JK, I want you to tell us the whole story of this race from your point of view. And I want to point out that lately, as effective as these workout angles have been for us, lately they've given us nothing but trouble. But take it away.
Yeah, I mean, I'll continue to, before I said, this is not going to change me thinking that this is a smart way to do business. That's the first thing.
I agree with you completely.
I'll continue to do it.
We've hit a bad run of luck with this particular angle.
So I wake up looking at the workout report, the DRF workout report, and I don't think that I want to be clear that I don't think that the information was wrong. I think that it's circumstantial and it led us down a path and we were just unfortunate. Where Sister Charlie had been working with a filly by the name of Ice Spire. And I looked up Ice Spire and noticed that she hadn't run yet in North America. So I actually texted the Prince of Keeneland And I was like, have you heard of this filly I Spire? And I guess he looked it up on what he looks at and said, oh, she's in today at Aqueduct. And I was like, really? Because I Spire, I think in 3 consecutive works, had outworked Sister Charlie. And so it kind of made me say, like, wow, this I Spire must be pretty darn good. And
can I interrupt
Sister
with a
Charlie,
question? Let me interrupt with a question. So when you say outworked, were there positive comments in the workout report suggesting that I Spire had run better than my Sister Charlie, or were you just looking at the raw time of?
No. I'll just give you the quick abridged version. March 4th, Prairie Meadows, Palm Meadows,
Clink,
5
mistake jar
on the turf, which is very important. Because you asked me, were they
Yes.
working on the dirt of the turf? Because those can be misleading. They were all 3 of these were on the turf. This is from Sister Charlie's perspective. Flashy 5 furlongs, Sister second best, but staying right with mate on the inside. Serious splits. That was with I Spire. Then the next week they worked again together. And it said second best, but still traveling with good run with I Spire. And then the third week, more progressive AM activity with her buddy I Spire, duo matching strides through the wire. And then the last work at Keeneland was they got a break. She got a break from I Spire. She wasn't working with I Spire. So when I looked at the I Spire race at Aqueduct, she was running in like an allowance race, and I was like, look, I'm about to load up here. So we made a move there, and she ran second. And got ran by the way, if we're being honest, the quarter pole, like she was tied to it.
An unimpressive second for I Spire at Aqueduct. To
Right.
which JK asked me, what does this mean we do with Sister Charlie? Sister Charlie, who I'd loved on paper. And then I was like, well, I'd think twice anyway. Or I said something foolishly negative about Sister Charlie at that point.
So I moved all my tournament entries. I was using I Spire. I was using Sister Charlie as like my B horse. I was going to use Off Limits and then Sister Charlie, and then I just completely erased Sister Charlie and did all Off Limits based on that. And then Sister Charlie goes and wins. And
Nobody knows nothing.
Our friend Sean Borman said, I think he texted me, how pissed off are you?
Did it end up making a difference in the onlines you were playing?
Yeah, I mean, I was in contention on both days. They run together and you play. So I don't remember exactly what happened, but it would have helped, obviously, if I would have stayed with her. Because I had a good day.
$14,
Yeah.
close to $14.
Well, I guess it didn't really matter because I don't think it really mattered because I won 2 Belmont. I played the $95 into the Sunday $410 Belmonts, and I got 2 entries in there. So maybe it didn't make a difference, but still could have helped. I'm sure in another contest that I was in, and it just didn't help in that big one I was playing. And so
we talked about how obscene it is looking at the Derby points leaderboard and seeing 4 out of the 5 Pletchers. How about the top 3? In the Jenny Wiley, I mean, all of Chad Brown.
Yeah, and like Off Limits and 4-Star Crook didn't have ideal trip. I mean, 4-Star Crook did save a little bit of ground when she dipped down to the inside, but she was running on late. Off Limits came sweeping. They all 3 ran. Oh, and here's the kicker. I was watching TVG and they interviewed Chad before the race, and he said that Sister Charlie of the 3 is the one that probably needs the most ground, and that this situation fit Off Limits the best. So nobody knows, not even the best turf trainer in I was going to say the world, but then Aidan O'Brien might get upset. At least in the United States.
You can give him North America, I think, at this point, safely. And I don't think you'll get too many arguments. Unbelievable. And obviously all horses who you're going to have to look at, and we'll see how Brown chooses to split them up now, potentially, figure out what the goals are and see how they're allotted. But yeah, Sister Charlie excited us so much last year, and it'll be very interesting to see, especially if he's not necessarily wrong that she's going to stretch out best either. So something to keep in mind. That's the kind of trainer quote I wouldn't mind slugging back into my formulator. Just, Chad says, she's going to be better longer or whatever, to keep track of that as the year progresses. Maybe something that can help you cash a bet somewhere along the line. Any other thoughts from your trip to Keeneland this weekend, or should we get back into talking about some tournament stuff? Or actually, before we do that, we'll look at these Derby prices real quick. But any other closing thoughts from Keeneland?
It at least deserves a conversation is my boy Jack, who who took the
Oh, of
Lexington
course.
as a route to get in. I did like a kind of a funny thing that I've never done before, and the funny part about it is like a friend made fun of me, like, you would have posted it if you didn't win, but I took a video like as they were running in the race and said, like, this is going to be one of Kent's greatest rides. He somehow broke forward with my boy Jack, but then still took him back just enough to tuck him to the rail from the 12 hole, and I kind of called my shot Babe Ruth style that he was going to win for fun. He didn't win for fun, but he did win. But the figure is just not quick enough for me to get excited about him moving forward. I guess he's one that if they ride him to hit the board, he could be one that could get a piece in the Derby. If they ride him with any intent to try to win the race, I think that he'll be up against it. But if they kind of take him back and just try to, pass horses late, he could pick up, fifth or fourth and round out your super high five or your superfecta. But I just don't think he's quality enough.
I feel like the Lexington was the time, and proof once again, you can't stop rock and roll, and you can't stop the DRF Players podcast. All right, let's look at these prices. Mendelssohn sitting at the top of the market, best price 9-2. Justify there, still a juicy 5-1. I'm going to tell our English and Irish and listeners from around the world where you can go do this stuff. You're going to feel smug and superior when you take the 5-1 and the horse goes off at 5-2 or 3-1. I don't think, even if that narrative about Apollo takes hold, I don't know that this horse is going off at longer than 3s on Derby Day. What do you think about that?
I think it completely just depends on what happens the week of, the 2 weeks leading up. If he goes, the
workouts, in other words,
and he's working like a monster, and everyone's talking about how amazing he looks, and then someone says he just had that Barbaro, American Pharaoh, Animal Kingdom, Rachel Alexandra, Derby week work, then this horse is going to go off super short. The reason that American Pharaoh kind of slipped between the cracks is because, it was kind of a new situation with, kind of like Bob coming there with this kind of talented horse that we don't, we know he's kind of good, but we're not really sure, and he hasn't really been tested, and And that's the kind of the narrative that I keep hearing with Justify is that he's not tested, he's not this, he's not that. I think that the public won't fall for it this time if he can get a little bit of love going in the right direction. But there's also some horses in the race with American Pharaoh that I think maybe might be a little bit held at a higher regard than some of these other ones. Obviously Mendelssohn, but some of the other ones with like, Dortmund and Firing Line and Frosted and Materiality, to name a few.
I don't know. I mean, to me, there's a lot of very plausible ways to go here when you have horses like, 7-1 Audible, 10-1 Bolt Doro, 12-1 Good Magic, 12-1 Magnum Moon. I wonder if that's updated or not. Vino Rosso 20. Gosh, Hofburg, a bet 25. Solimini 25, Noble Indy 25, longer the rest. Those are the prices right now looking at the markets around the world. If I make you pick one of them for you, JK, for me, it's Justify with a bullet of those prices. Is that also the one for you, and does anything else appeal to you in the numbers I just cited?
Yeah, because I think that like everything else, everybody else, you can get pretty close to that. And if and whatever you lose and not getting close to that, you gain in the fact that it's like, you still have 3 weeks of the race. Like, for instance, Hofburg at 25-1.
He's going to be that on the day, isn't he? I mean, how is he going to be shorter than 25?
I think he's going to be a little bit wise guy-ish. I do. I think he's going to be a little bit wise guy-ish. Not too much. I mean, Mott obviously doesn't have a great record in the Derby because but I think he's going to be. I've heard his name quite a bit. A lot of people saying they're into. Oh, I like Hofburg. Oh, I like Hofburg. Irad's going to show up there, so he could get a little cute, but I don't think too cute. If he works well or something, he could drift down to 16-1.
Jeez, you think so? I mean, that to me seems extreme. I don't know.
It does, but it's that mind that bird effect where, no horse is really where they should be anymore because of those situations. Everybody's 25-1.
Right. It does seem like what I would call that mind that bird effect is that you'll see a lot of horses that should be 200-1 that are 40 or 50-1. I haven't noticed that compression as much in the middle of the market, but you may well be right. I mean, I'm not trying to say anything against the horse. I think he's interesting to get in underneath for a piece, but I just, if you made me like guess what my value line on him is going to be, it would be, maybe value line would be 30, maybe 25. But I feel like if I were guessing what the public were going to bet, I'd go longer. But you're right. Stories get attached to horses. Narratives form that really change the market when it comes to the Kentucky Derby, and we could easily see that happening here. Meanwhile, in the Oaks field, we've got Midnight Bisou on top at 5-2. Monomoy Girl 3-1. We missed the price there, JK. We could have got 6-1 before the other day. Probably should have done that, huh?
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Yeah, I mean, the same situation. I prefer Midnight Bisou. I mean, I'm sorry. I prefer Monomoy Girl, forward type. Midnight Bisou is going to have to come from off of it. She'll be chasing horses that are better than the ones she's been chasing. You know what's weird is in most Oaks, there's like some filly that I just absolutely fall in love with, like one way or the other. And that's just not really happening this year. I mean, maybe it'll come around, or maybe when I have the PPs in front of me, I'll be able to kind of fall in love with something or see a trip that I didn't really realize was there. But it's in the last few years, I can think back to all these really talented horses. Paradise Woods I was in love with, and Dreaming of Julia, who I was in love with. There's all these situations that they don't seem to be popping up this year in this Oaks crop.
Paradise Woods and the Oaks. I hear that, and I just instinctively go to bang my head against the wall. Interesting storyline for this year's Oaks. Rhea, 16-1 listed as now. Of course, this is the filly that ran behind Mendelssohn in the UAE Derby, now in the care of Bob Baffert. That alone makes the 16s look not insane, but I think as much as I like Monomoy Girl, she's one I'll be following a little bit to give us maybe a bit of a line on the Mendelssohn form, though of course it's hard when Mendelssohn won by a city block to hold anything. I guess I wouldn't hold anything poor Rhea does against, or Riot probably is, against Mendelssohn, but a good run would certainly boost that form a little bit. Is she one you're taking a look at all in the hands of your close personal friend, Bob Baffert?
Yeah, I'll holler at B squared when it gets a little bit. Well, that's what I call him, B squared. But no, hey, what was her trip like in that race? Was she wide or was she on the rail?
No, I think she was drawn inside, and she didn't get right to the rail, but I think she saw plenty of rail.
Okay, yeah.
I'd have to watch it again. She's probably
it's a work thing, A lot of those times, like that type of situation, it's a work thing. But she's not going to be in the Baffert program long enough to get to kind of, obviously Abel Tasman wasn't in it too long, but she was in it long enough to get the job done on the day last year. But you're probably right. Probably a little bit over bet.
Yeah, so if the 16 was the number on the day, I think I'd find a way to get like a little bit in there anyway. We'll have to obviously. I don't see that necessarily materializing. These prices are not non-runner, no bet. In other words, these bets are action. If you take these prices, the horse doesn't show up in the gate, you lose. So that's why there's some of that fat is built in. And that's also why probably the only number I'm wanting to sort of jump at now is the Justify at 5. Though I am toying with the Monomoy Girl at 3 as an interesting possibility. Do you think, if you had to guess what price Monomoy and Midnight Bisou are going to be on the day, what would you say?
Yeah, I would just be saying a number just to be saying it. Like
gotcha.
I don't even.
It's not a game you play that much.
Yeah, I mean, if you try to get me to name the third, fourth, and fifth choice horses in that race, I would struggle to do it at the moment. So I feel silly trying to say what I think they're going to be. You know what I mean?
Totally fair.
But here fair. I do have a question though. When it comes to the Derby, how do we think that the narrative of what is the last 5 Derbies have been won by the favorite? How do you think that will play in the market?
That's an interesting question. It seems like something that might push money down on Justify potentially, but I would think that the competing narrative of Apollo would maybe negate that one. But it is interesting, and we've talked about that the domination of favorites is not random. It is tied to that issue we talked about before with taking some of the chaos and sprinters out. I want to turn the conversation, JK, because probably we're going to struggle to even do this one in 5 minutes, and we can come back to it. We've talked about it before. You were involved in this conversation on Twitter. Doc himself, Anthony Trezza, of whom I'm a big fan, started the conversation. Podcast host emeritus Mike Hogan got involved. And the topic was Doczilla complaining about getting pipped in the last leg of an online live format contest by a long shot. and him professing his preference for contests where all the picks are in before the contest sequence starts, the all-in formats that we have on DRF tournaments, known as pick and praise elsewhere. Why did you decide to get involved in this conversation, and your thoughts on the issue?
Yeah, well, let me be clear, just to say this out loud. I think that there's a world in which both exist, right? I get it. Like, it needs to, there's pluses and minuses.
That's the world in which we live, actually.
Well, yeah, a world in which they need to exist.
Okay.
Both exist. Now, I think that to back up, his point is that in the same sequence of races, that a live contest, 1 through 7, first through 7th place, was a stretch between $124 and $77. However, in a pick and pray event where all the picks had to be, an all-in event where they had to be in sooner, the 1st through 7th stretch was $56 and $40. So with the same races being used, there was almost like a $70 difference between the winners.
Spell out what that means to you.
Well, it means that late what happens is that people get mathematically eliminated from using horses that not all, a majority of people get mathematically eliminated from using horses that they would usually use if they were in a better situation, in a better spot, if they were in contention. But instead, since they're not in contention, they have to only do one thing, which is use the horses that mathematically get them there. Now, when that happens, the problem is that usually people don't like the horse. They're just using the horse for a mathematical reason and hoping that chaos happens and the horse wins. Now, that's part of the game. I completely agree with that. My point is that it's just a little bit unfortunate because, and Scott Carson made the point, well, if the guy that's $55 behind is using the cap horse, he's still not going to win because there's 8 guys in front of him that are using that they could probably use the horse too. Yes, that is true. However, a couple of things. One, those guys that are in front of him earned the right to be in front of him. So that's fair enough. The second thing is that those guys could also use other horses. They could use a 12-to-1 shot or a 14-to-1 shot that they actually like rather than just looking at the board. I've done it before. I look at the board and I say, what horses are 20-to-1 or above? Those are the 3. I'll look at the form and pick the one that I think is the best of those 3, and I just close my eyes and hope. And I've won contests doing that before. Here's the problem, is that, and Scott's other response was, if you don't want to get beat by those bombs, then play the bombs and protect yourself. To me, that's flawed, because if I'm in first place and I'm playing the senseless 20-to-1 shot to protect myself against the quote-unquote stabbers that are way behind me, I'm leaving myself unbelievably vulnerable to the guys that are in 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, the 4-to-1 shots that I actually like. And so that's where the problem arises. And I'm not saying that it needs to go away. I'm just saying that it is kind of unfortunate, and it is pretty annoying. And because of that, if I got to pick which game I would play, it would be the all-in version. But I understand why the live exists, and I'm fine playing it, and I understand that this is a situation that could happen to me.
Right, and I don't mind giving sympathy to Dr. Trezza about a tough beat. What I don't like, and I'm not saying that he did this, but I can't remember specifically. I'd have to go back and look at the tweet. You could find the threads on Twitter, of course. I don't like the idea that, because this thing is annoying, all contests should be, all in. I mean, to me, that's just, silly. It's like we all are going to have styles where one format or another suits us, and it's totally cool if we want to cater even all of our play into those games that suit us. And personally say, I think there's a big difference between saying, I'm not going to play, and again, I'm not attributing this to the good doctor. I'm just throwing it out there. Did you know that he is producer AJ's dentist, by the way, JK? Did you know that about?
It's optometrist, isn't it?
Oh yeah, he's an eye doctor. You are 2020. I said dentist. Anyway, shows you what I know. Optometrist. I get the idea that you say, I don't want to play in live contests, and here's why. I respect way more than some other people who I saw saying there should be no live contest. That's just nuts to me.
No,
here's the reality of all-in contests to me. I get them. I get why you like them. If I played contests every single day, I would probably like them too. As somebody who played contests for a bit of fun, they're dreadfully boring. Dreadfully boring. Live contests are much more fun and exciting. It's nice to be able to change along the way. Yes, it's annoying at the end that you can be in a position where, you get touched off like that. That stinks. And it stinks that it's a format that does encourage at the end players to play more horses that they don't like. To me, the best formats are going to encourage you to play horses you like. It is a flaw of the format, but I don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater and get rid of a format that I think can get people really excited about playing contests, especially that fascinating end game, which is what reminded me of poker and was some of the most fun I had when researching the winning contest player, was playing end game in live contest formats. I absolutely loved it.
So I got a kind of an interesting idea. Obviously, we talked about in the Twitter thread a bunch of different ideas for different different game types, right? An all 10 races, all in, or excuse me, live for 7, the last 3 all in. I mean, all these different things you can do. In my other career, we do real estate stuff, and there's the thing, and I'm not going to go down this long rabbit hole. There's this thing called 1031 exchange, and essentially you have to identify 3 properties within a certain time frame that you would want to get. You want to trade into, and then you can.
I
trade
like where
into
you're
those.
going with this.
So why not have a situation where it's a live contest, but you have to identify the 3 horses that you would like to use in that situation, and then you can pick from the 3 in your live situation, but you can't deviate from that. I think
it's too complicated, but I like the idea in principle.
Right.
That essentially it's like you can play. Here's how you could do it. And I don't really think we should do this, but I think it's interesting from an ideas point of view. You have like a really tight cap in the last races. In other words, instead of the cap being, 20 to 1, 10 to 1, the cap becomes, 8 to 1, 4 to 1, or something dramatically lower. But you can call your long shot. If before the contest you say, but I want to play this long shot late, you're allowed to do it. It's
but you can't.
But it's right. But it's an interesting from a point of view.
But from a long shot player standpoint, which I'm not one of those players, you don't want to eliminate the opportunity of, or the luck of the draw of you loving a 20 to 1 shot in the last.
Yes.
You play in the contest for that horse, and now you can't play them because of these soft rules we put into place to protect the complainers, which I'll raise my hand and say that I have been one at times. But I don't have a problem with the whole format. The other thing that I want to address before I know we're running out of time, but I do want to make sure we talk about, because he's a friend. He's our old co-host and
podcast host emeritus. Come on.
Right. That's and a lot of people, and obviously a lot of people, love Mike, follow Mike, and probably saw the interaction. My whole thing with Mike is I love Mike to death. I was just expressing that, I thought he was a little bit pokey to Trezza when he said, "Are you calling Littlemore a stabber?" But he wasn't calling him a stabber. He was just saying that he stabbed. We've all done it. I've done it. You've done it. Trezza's done it. We all do it. I don't think he was calling Littlemore, the NHC champion, a stabber. So I wanted to clear that up. The other thing I want to say is, Mike might not understand the frustration of that situation because he doesn't play in a lot of contests. He's not a huge contest guy, and not because of any fault. That's not his deal. And so all I was saying to him was like, look, man, you probably just, you don't know how bad it sucks until it happens to you. And so maybe, that's the whole thing. And I think he thought I was saying that he didn't have the right to speak about the space. And that wasn't what I was saying. I was just saying that, I haven't been punched in the face in a long time, right? I think it probably sucks, but I can't fully relate to it because it hasn't happened to me in a long time. I kind of forgot what it feels like. It doesn't mean that I don't know that it probably does, but I feel like a guy from the UFC would have a better right to talk about the feeling of getting punched in the face than I do.
Keep bragging about beating me in head-to-heads. We'll remind you of that feeling this summer at Saratoga. All right? I'm kidding, of course. One fun workaround, in my view, that I will mention, and then we do have to get out of here, and apologies, producer Craig, who told me not to go long. I told him I wouldn't go long, and now I'm going long. The cut line, to me, helps with this immensely in a championship-level online format like the WCH. Because to me, if you've gone through the various stages of the tournament and qualified to get through to the final round, you deserve whatever you get. Plus, in the final round of a championship-level event, by taking that long shot, you're costing yourself potentially being further up in the prize pool and money. So we don't mind there's no problem taking long shots at the end when those actions have consequences. It gets annoying when the actions have no consequences. However, I'm not suggesting that day in, day out, that's practical. I think day in, day out, it's great to have both options, and players can, let the market talk, let people play in the format that they want to play in. I think it's great that both exist. I see both sides of the issue. I definitely don't want live contests to go away at all, but I understand why some guys like the other. I mean, it's a political answer, I suppose, but it's how I absolutely feel. But I do think when it comes to big money on the line, a better answer can be found. And I think, and this is egotistical, I suppose, because I consulted on the format, but I think with the WCH, we're on to something. And I think maybe some type of expansion of that cut line format in cash games is something that might just be worth exploring. Your thoughts, JK, and then let's get out of here.
Yeah, my bad. I dig the cut line. I think it's great. I agree with you. I think that you want to earn the right to be in position. Our friend Chris Larmy mentioned, tongue in cheek said, let's get rid of the buzzer beater and the Hail Mary. Well, the difference between those is that those teams put themselves within one score. And I get that, yes, $60 is one score, but it's not really. It's apples and oranges. And so I don't have a problem with people catching me late if they put themselves into position. So I think that cut line makes you earn that right of getting into position to do what was done.
The difference is look at the points you can get from that one play relative to the points scored in the entire game. In a single play in football, you can get 7, maybe 8 points. That's not going to be half the total score of the game very often at all, the way 65 points or 64 points is going to be in an online contest. I feel like the cut line levels that out and makes it something that's just a bit more earned and, again, attaches further consequences. That is all the time we have for this edition of the DRF Players Podcast. Going to be back twice more this week. We're going to do 2 shows on Friday. Can't really talk about it now, but I want to pay tribute later in the week to the great Bill Knack, one of my literary heroes and just truly a giant of sports writing, of all writing. And we're going to do that in a special show late next week, and we'll also be back to look ahead to some racing. So you'll hear from us a couple more times this week. I want to thank Jonathan Kinchin, producer Craig, producer AJ, his optometrist, Dr. Anthony Trezza, Travis Stone, Willie Nile. Most of all, I want to thank all of you for listening. We will be back later this week. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatow. May you win all your photos.